calling all students. I know you guys are currently in your save the degree phase, and I wish you all the best with that. But I also wanted to make this video to encourage you guys to think about your secure the bag phase. And as you guys have already seen with the title of this video, we are talking about all things VAC work. And in this video, I'm going to be covering the following. Firstly, what is VAC work? What to expect during your VAC work? How much to get paid, or how much can you expect to get paid for VAC work? Why you should do VAC work? Where to find these opportunities? When to apply? As well as some wrap-up tips that I think will help you. I love VAC work. I think I've probably done VAC work at probably 3, 4, not actually even close to 5 companies, and I have enjoyed it a lot. I definitely think that it did help me when I was picking which company to work for, and this is actually something that people need to think about. I know we're always trying to get a job, but as you guys are interviewing or getting interviewed by companies, you guys also need to realize that you should also be doing your own interview process where you're assessing if that company is the right fit for you, okay? And VAC work is usually the best opportunity for you to do this because you get a chance to see what they're like on a day-to-day basis. You're interacting with people who actually work there, and you can get a sense of whether you'll fit in culturally. And I know with me, when I actually had to pick where I was going to go and do my first job, like for my articles, it literally all came down to culture. At the end of the day, I knew every company was going to offer me kind of similar things, but the culture, the type of people who work there is what made the difference. So I really do encourage you guys to do VAC work, even if you're not thinking about it. I hope this video plants the seed, and I hope you guys water it. But before I continue, I just do want to say that there are some things that obviously I might miss because I am one person. You might have a different experience. So as we go ahead with this video, if there are any other tips, comments, or tricks that you feel like worked or did not work when you were doing your VAC work, please do let us know in the comments. There's so many people who are reading, and I always say I don't claim to know everything, but there's over 100,000 of us here. I'm pretty sure someone somewhere can help someone else. I will leave some things in the description box as well, so do check that out, like some things like templates if you need stuff. But I also always say I do encourage you guys to get the Get Ready With Me Work Edition book, which I've written with students and young professionals in mind. Okay, so in this book there's actually a section about like interview tips and job hunting tips, as well as actually what to do when you've landed the job, because I feel like we do so much prep getting in, and then when you're inside it's like, now what? So this is the book for you, especially if you're in your final year, you're preparing for your finals, but you're also thinking about the life you're going to live, trying to buy a car, trying to find an apartment. This is the book for you, so grab it. All available on the website. Okay, let's get into it.
My name is Nobuhle Kumalo, and I'm a personal finance creator. Some of the videos I've made include how to buy shares, top 10 affordable cars, how to file your taxes, side hustles, interviews, you name it, I've done it. Note, these videos do not constitute financial advice. My aim is to plant the idea, it's up to you to water it.
What is VAC work? Okay, so I have briefly mentioned what it is, but VAC work is short for vacation work. And basically it gives you a chance to go and work for a company that you may wish to work for in the future, or actually a company that's just in the industry that you believe you'd like to head into. This is different from other types of work. For example, if you decide to become a waitress or something, that might not count as VAC work as much as you are working during your vacation or your holidays. That is just a job, whereas VAC work is something that is aligned with something that you're studying and you're sort of getting experience. Doesn't really always count, okay? However, you can add it on your CV and you can add it on your LinkedIn because you did it. However, it's usually like a couple of days. And yeah, okay, what to expect during VAC work. All right, so I believe there's 2 types of VAC work programs. There's like an official one where basically it is a whole program that's designed for students. It's well in place. There are, interventions. They've thought about it really well. But then there's also self-made VAC work programs where basically you've shot your shot and a company has said, okay, cool, come through. And they don't really have a plan. They don't have something for you to do. You kind of DIY it, okay? But let's start off with the official VAC program. With official VAC programs, I want to say view these as a company intro. So at this point, your potential future employer is trying to sell themselves to you. They're trying to show you guys what you can expect. They're showing themselves in a really great light. And this is good. It's a great chance for you to actually ask a lot of questions that you might have. They also might bring down a couple of current employees. So people who have already walked the journey that you're on and are currently working. And they'll share their experience, and you also get a chance to ask them like one-on-one personalized questions. With these type of programs, I will say say though that there are like varying levels to it. So the intro level is usually quite fun. There's a lot of games and quizzes and team building exercises, and at times they might actually show you some of their software for like accounting, for example. I remember we used to do like a bit of a sample audit. It wasn't a real client, it was just like a fictitious thing, and they were just trying to show us how the program works, just to kind of prepare you for when you actually do join the company later. However, if you're on a slightly advanced type of VAC work, and at this point this is like you've probably already signed a contract, or they know for certain that you are coming to work for them, so they're willing to share a bit more of the information. Remember, there's a lot of confidentiality with clients, so they wouldn't just take like random VAC work students to actual clients. But if you've signed and they already know that you're coming, especially if you're also like in your like final year, so you actually have a lot of knowledge as well, they do give you a lot more. But then with these, I think you would have had to go through like a previous level, like an intro, before you get to this. Okay, now moving back to the self-made VAC work program, where basically there is no VAC work program at that company that you're at. It could be a small company, or it could be an international company that doesn't really have a big base in South Africa, or you just might have missed it, or you might have studied something that isn't really aligned with their core business. For example, if you are applying at an audit firm but you have IT skills, they might not have an IT VAC work, but they might still be able to let you come and shadow someone who works in the IT department. Similarly, if you go and work at a hospital but you didn't study medicine or becoming a nurse, let's say you studied finance, you can still ask to go and shadow someone who works in the finance department of a hospital, because that division does exist. They might not create a whole program for it, because they don't anticipate having so many people wanting to just come and like work in that small department. However, if you find their email address or contact details and shoot your shot, they will definitely probably be willing to assist you or like accommodate you. However, this also does depend on the type of industry. Okay, like with health, they might not be able to accommodate you because there's so many like patients and stuff. It's life-threatening, guys, so you know. So with these self-made programs, there's not a lot of structure. You go there when they obviously say come through around this week. You discuss with whoever you're talking to. They'll say, come through. You meet the people in the office. They're shown around the office. They might like take you along for like minuscule tasks, like, hey, come to this meeting and you'll write some minutes. You'll write the minutes. Sometimes they'll give you a task like, okay, you need to enter this data onto this. So it's a lot of like manual, not a lot of thinking is required in these. However, this is still a good way to still like show the company that you are interested in working for them later on. With self-made programs though, I do want to say that because there isn't a lot of structure, it can also just get a bit weird and they can blur the lines. Like I know, for example, they might send you for coffee to go buy them coffee, or they might send you to go and pick up teammates' orders, like if they've ordered food, which is, fine if you want to do it. And I'm literally emphasizing that fine if you want to do it, because if you don't want to do it, then don't do it. Also use your judgment. But also I do want to say, because of how unstructured it can get, also bring your own work. Okay, there will be times where you're sitting, you're idle, there's not much to do, so bring your own work. I remember there was a time where there were 3 of us who were doing VAC work, and one of the guys started watching movies, and I was like, I want to hate, because why are you watching movies when we're at VAC work? But there was nothing to do. So then I actually started bringing my notes and I started studying on the table. I still got the VAC work because I was there, but they didn't really give us work. It wasn't structured. Okay, but I don't recommend watching movies, at least not out in the open where everyone can see you, because it just looks like you're not serious about your work, even though they can't give you work. Okay, now let's move on to how much do you get paid during VAC work? It depends. Some VAC works will pay you nothing, so R0, and others might pay you like a salary that ranges from 12,000 Rand to 30,000 Rand. This also depends on the city you're working with. So Joburg, like if they are paying, Joburg will pay you higher than what a Durban, job would pay. However, I want to focus more a bit on the 0 ones, because those are quite common. Majority of the ones I did not get paid for. It was also because it was a lot of intro VAC work, so I wasn't actually doing real work that company could charge other clients for. It was more like them trying to show us who they are, getting to know them, and they were like, it was a cost to them essentially to host us, because they would have to give us food, they would have to give us like stationery and all of that. With this though, I do want to say that if you're going to be doing a R0 VAC work, please do make sure that it is in a city that you have free accommodation and reliable, potentially free transport as well, because you don't want to be living in a hotel and Ubering all the time, and it's costing you so much money as a students just to get like an intro VAC work experience. I don't think it's that worth it, especially if you can't afford it and your parents can't cushion you. But I'll talk about this in the wrap-up tips because there's a lot that I want to tell you about my personal experience. Now let's move on to why you should do VAC work. So after hearing that some companies might not pay you anything to do VAC work and it'll actually cost you, I know some people might be like, actually I'll miss this. However, I do want to encourage you to still do VAC work because one, this is your way of showing your interest to a company and then they can potentially consider you a lot more favorably should you ever apply for that job later on. I've mentioned countless number of times that the job market is very insecure at the moment and this applies to everything. However, when you've done VAC work, basically when you've shown interest, you've applied, you've reached out to an HR person or whatever the case may be, and you've asked to shadow someone, you've asked to just get a glimpse of what happens in that job, you are showing a lot of interest that other university students are not showing yet. So at interview stage, firstly, they might even remember your name, but if it's a big company, maybe not, but they remember your name. However, secondly, on your CV, it will come up that you do have some form of experience. And remember, experience is also what kind of sets you apart. I was talking to someone and we were saying that to get a job you need experience, but to get experience you need a job. So it's like a catch-22, but VAC work is how you can get that experience whilst you're still studying. Also, another thing is that it's a great sneak peek into your future. Sometimes you think you know what you studied, however when you get into it like full time, you realize that actually I maybe didn't understand completely what this career entails. However, when you do VAC work, you get a bit of a glimpse, you get to speak to people who are already doing what you're potentially going to do, and if you realize that actually this is not your vibe, you still have a chance to change it. You can add another major, you can study a different type of honors, as opposed to someone who will go the whole 9 yards and study the whole thing all the way to honors and masters, and then when they get into the workplace, they're like, actually I don't really like this. This is not fitting well with my personality. And then it's a bit too late. Well, actually, it's not too late, okay? You can always study. However, it's a great sneak peek. That's the point. And then the last point that I'll put you on my thing is that personally, I wasn't the smartest in the class. I've actually never been the smartest in any class. And I think I like that because it always makes sure, it makes sure that I'm always on my toes. But the thing is, because I was never the smartest in the class, I knew I needed to find a way to stand out to future employers because it's not going to be just my marks. Trust me, I was passing, okay? And I did have a couple of distinctions here and there, but nothing to write home about. I was just a normal student, but I also did a lot of extramurals. So I had leadership positions, I participated in a lot of societies and subcommittees and committees, so I did that as well. However, I also did VAC work. I basically did not give anyone a chance to disqualify me from getting a job unless if they just didn't want me, but I did everything. And the thing is, I always say I love getting to an interview because once I'm there, I can talk my way through anything. But your CV is very important, and doing VAC work is what will actually help your CV be a lot stronger, as I mentioned. Okay, I've spoken a lot about this. Now I want to move on to where to find these work opportunities, basically how to apply. So go to specific company websites. So whatever company you're hoping to work for, go to their websites, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you should see a page or a link that says careers. Click on that. Under that, you can then search VAC work or intern or whatever. There are multiple keywords and I'll leave some in the description box, but just search those things. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you're just going to search for VAC work on LinkedIn, you can do that, by the way. You can search on LinkedIn. However, sometimes it's not the best SEO, so you might not find all opportunities. Also, not all companies have invested really well in their LinkedIn. Some companies are they have 3 posts on their LinkedIn just to prove that they have a LinkedIn account, but then they forgot about it. But their websites might be well maintained, so that's where you're going to find it. Another thing is that you can also try your PNets and Career Junction, all of that. However, those are mainly for people who are looking for real jobs, like people who are ready to work fully. So as a VACie, you might not find the job you're looking for. I also do want to say, email the HR person. So try and find the HR person of a company, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's a contact thing on the website. I actually recommend the contact one on the website because it's literally dedicated for you. You'll go to a generic mailbox and they'll redirect it to whoever is in HR. And once you found this email that you can use to reach out to your company, you can just send them an email inquiring about a VAC work opportunity that you can potentially do. Ask them if they have a program you can apply for, or if you can just come in and shadow someone. To write this, I'll probably say just punch in some stuff on ChatGPT, use a cute prompt and ask them, how can I ask ask for a VAC work program, you know, from this HR person, but I'll also try and leave some of my own little tips or templates of what I would say if I was applying like this, like informally. Okay, almost done. Second to last, when to apply for VAC work. So different industries have different deadlines. However, because it is a VAC work program, it means you're working during your VAC, like your holiday time as a student, which means a lot of companies understand that a lot of you will be off around the December, January phase, as well as the June, July phase, sometime September. So it really does depend. However, what I do want to say is most of these applications will actually open 2 to 3 months before the actual vacation period. So don't try apply for VAC work during VAC. It's late. People are already, you know, doing the VAC work. You need to apply ahead. So do set reminders. Maybe you can tell yourself, I can apply maybe like around April, and maybe it'll be open for other months or whatever. Or even now, I'm recording this in September. So September, October, you know, that's when you're applying for December opportunities and January opportunities. But and as you're applying, they're probably going to ask you for things like your CV. They might ask for a cover letter, but these are pretty standard and you will find them. And I also do have resources. Like I keep mentioning, oh my word, I just don't want to make the video too long, but I also don't want to make you pause, try and write whatever I'm saying. Hence, I'm just going to put it into like a nice document that you guys can use. Now, let's go into the last section, which is my wrap-up tips. And you can see I'm already so excited because I can, you know, yappa, tell you guys about how I experienced VAC work. Full disclaimer, if you haven't picked it up from this video, I love VAC work. I believe in VAC work. I am so happy I did VAC work. I love VAC work. Okay. I did VAC work at multiple places. I did VAC work, I think, at 3 audit firms. No, it was 2 audit firms. I did VAC work at an investment bank. I did VAC work at a consulting firm. And I also did VAC work at a school. Yeah, I did a lot of things. And I don't even think I added all of it in LinkedIn because I just felt like some of it wasn't really relevant. But the reason I'm saying this is because I loved the idea of getting to know different environments. I actually feel like I even tried to no, it's not VAC work. I was gonna lie. I do research now on other things, on other businesses, on other side hustles. So I was gonna say, oh, does that count as VAC work? No, it does not. Does not. That is research. Okay. But wrap up tips from me. Always be on your best behavior. They are always watching. Every single thing that you're doing is an audition, but don't be pretentious. Be yourself. The moment you feel like you have to put on a face or you have to act a certain way, just know that that place is not for you. I have had an experience where the company was great and I loved it and it was great on paper. Everything was amazing. But when I got there, I had the worst time ever. And I told them, but I don't really recommend that you guys do that. I told them, my dad was like, are you sure? I was like, yep, they really frustrated me. However, the reason I'm saying don't do that is because there are better ways to handle that. But also, I had to tell them because they needed constructive criticism because I realized no one was going to tell them if I didn't tell them. So, and the funny thing is that they later on came back and told me how they've improved, how they've adapted certain things based on what I said annoyed me. But hey, in South Africa, our land. I also want to say try do it in a city where you have free accommodation and reliable transport. As I mentioned, you're not going to be getting paid, and if you are getting paid, you're not going to get paid the day you arrive. You might get paid later on, so you do need to have the money to get there and get back reliably. And that's actually the next point. The money or the payment may be delayed, so even though you might do VAC work for 1 week or 2 weeks, they'll only pay you when they pay all of their staff members. So if you've planned for this money, you want to do something during the VAC work, you might not have it, so you might have to borrow money and then pay people back when you've gotten paid, or just, you know. But I really do want to say try and have people who will support you like for free, like your parents or your aunts or your uncles. I do also still want to say do the VAC work in the city that you're hoping to work in, and this is especially for like companies where they have offices all over. So I used to work at Deloitte and I did VAC work at Deloitte Joburg as well as Deloitte Durban. I didn't do anything at Deloitte Cape Town. No, Deloitte Cape Town is where I interviewed, but I didn't actually work there. But what I will say is, as much as it's one company as a whole, there was still slightly variations. Like there was a different vibe in the different offices, but not too much. It wasn't very different. I also did do VAC work at PwC. I did PwC Durban, PwC Pietermaritzburg. I didn't do PwC Joburg. But even then, the Durban and Pietermaritzburg offices were so different. So that's why I'm saying try and go to the office, the city that you're hoping to work in, so that you get a really good feel. However, company culture like is the same throughout. Second to last, make friends. The people you see there are other equally motivated students, so keep them close. Okay, these are not only your future colleagues, but they could also be like really great people to keep in your circle who can motivate you, who can also tell you when other opportunities are available, because you guys are clearly as driven as one another or whatever. And then lastly, back yourself. Be confident. You've got this. You know what you're doing. You're on the right track, and the fact that you got to the end of this video is a good sign. You clearly really want this, and I really do hope that you succeed. If you do need extra guidance, I have told you guys I've left a lot of resources in the description box, but you can also grab the book, the Get Ready With Me Work Edition book, which, hey guys, I always say I wish I wrote this for me back then, but obviously that's pointless. But the reason I wrote this was because I was like, there's so much I wish I could, ask, and there's so much I don't know. So I have tried to word it nicely here. And the book, obviously you can get a lot of resources online like this video, but with the book, at least it's like structured, so you know exactly what you're going to get. You go straight to a chapter. You can read just one chapter. You don't have to read it page to page like your English is your leg. But anyways guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. My name is Nobuhle Khumalo, and this has been a video on VAC work. I didn't even introduce myself at the beginning. I got so excited. Calling all students. Ha! No, but I hope you guys appreciate the excitement that I have. I back you, and ciao!
If you enjoyed this video, please tip me with a like, comment, and subscription.